The movie opens in a fantasy land known as Bellegory. Alyosha is getting chased by soldiers. He makes his way through the forest and manages to get away from them. However, he gets attacked by multiple soldiers at once. He then gets off his horse and begins to fight with them. Once he has defeated everyone, he senses a presence behind his back. He turns around and finds Varvara, an evil sorceress. Varvara was searching for a special sword, which she believed Alyosha knows about as he is the last warrior alive. She asks him about it but he refuses to answer and picks up a sword to fight her. Varvara then turns his sword into leather, and when Alyosha tries to attack her, she turns him to stone. She then turns to Alyosha's friend, and asks him about the sword but instead of answering her, he jumps off the cliff and disappears. Meanwhile, two soldiers pick up the stone Alyosha and throw him off the cliff, where he joins many others under the sea who had also been turned to stone by Varvara. In modern-day Russia, Ivan, a magician and fake psychic, goes on stage to perform for his viewers. One night, when he is leaving, an old woman shows up beside his car and tells him that he will soon be going to a different world. Ivan does not pay much attention to her and goes back to his home. It is revealed that Ivan was an orphan and he lived alone, and only had a housekeeper to help him cook and clean. The next morning, Ivan visits a woman, who had called him to help her with his psychic powers and figure out whether her husband is being unfaithful to her or not. He tells her that there is a presence of dark energy in her home that is causing her husband to not be drawn toward her. He performs a fake ritual for her, after which, the woman becomes convinced that her husband had been cheating on her. Ivan then leaves after the woman pays him a hefty amount for his services. He is then called to a hospital where he is asked to help heal a child who has been sick and has been in a coma, and the doctors have not been able to help him. When he gets there and sees the child, he informs the doctors that he will not be able to help the child and leaves the hospital while questioning his career choice, knowing that his fake powers gave the boy's parents hope that their son will one day wake up. Ivan gets a flashback and he begins to recall his days in the orphanage when some of the boys had locked him inside a storage room. He had only managed to escape after using a pin to unlock the door. To this day, he had kept the pin safe inside a necklace since he believed that it brought him luck. Later that day, he was having lunch when he is interrupted by a man and two of his bodyguards. Ivan quickly realizes that the man was the husband of the woman he had seen earlier. He gets up from his table and begins to run. He comes across a slide in the mall and jumps through it, however, when he comes out of the slide he finds himself in a strange forest. Feeling confused, Ivan begins to look around but does not recognize the place. He looks inside the tree that he had come out of when suddenly, the same old man who had jumped off the cliff shows up. He tells Ivan that he is here to save everyone. Ivan begins to walk away from the man, but he continues to follow him. He then tells him that he knew his parents, and they had sent him away to protect him. Ivan tries to ignore him, but the old man continues following him. He then gives Ivan a ring, but just then, the king's guards shoot an arrow and kill the old man. Ivan is then taken to the castle and presented before the king, who notices the ring that he was wearing. He tells everyone that Ivan is his long-lost brother and invites him to drink with them. Just then, Varvara shows up and introduces herself. She then offers to show Ivan around the castle, but she tricks him and gets her guards to lock him up in the dungeon. There, Ivan notices a man named Koshchei. His body parts had been dismembered and were trapped in ice. Ivan asks him if he knows why he has been brought to the dungeon, to which he replies that he is Alyosha's son and was brought to Bellegory to save it from the evil queen. At the same time, another prisoner is brought in, named Baba Yaga, who is a witch. Ivan asks Koshchei if there is any way he can return to Earth. Koshchei tells him that there is a sword that only Alyosha's son can find, that will allow him to get back to Earth. He also tells Ivan that he had managed to find the sword once and had picked it up, which is why he was now immortal, but he was captured by Varvara's men and brought to the dungeon. Later that night, the witch frees a frog and sends it toward the prison guard. The frog turns into a girl named Vasilisa, who knocks the guard out and goes to free both the witch and Koshchei. Koshchei frees Ivan as well because he wants him to help them with their plan. While escaping from the dungeon, Ivan accidentally rings a bell while trying to get his things from the prison guard's body. It alerts all the guards of their escape. They manage to fight the guards off and leave the dungeon. Meanwhile, at the castle, the queen is informed about the prisoners' escape and she turns into an eagle to chase after them, but she is unable to catch up with them. The next morning, she tells the king about it and lies to him that his brother had betrayed them and freed all the prisoners. The four of them then reach Baba Yaga's home. However, this is when Ivan unintentionally starts creating problems for them. He first burns down the witch's house. Baba Yaga begins beating him, but Koshchei tells her that they need Ivan to find the sword. Despite the problems, Ivan begins to enjoy his time with them and takes pictures along the way. Then, they begin moving further and reach a swamp that is protected by a merman that looks like a frog. To get information from him, Vasilisa tries to seduce him, but when she finds out what he looks like, she moves away from him. Baba Yaga then transforms herself into a beautiful woman and manages to get the information from him. The merman, Vadianoi, joins them on their journey and they reach a cave, where a giant is making food. Back at the swamp, Varvara reaches there and uses her magic to find that the protector has gone along with the group. At the cave, Koshchei tells them that they need to cross the cave without making any noise, but Ivan's ringtone begins to go off, and he draws the giant's attention toward them. The giant begins attacking them. Ivan then starts to play music on his mobile phone which distracts the giant as it begins to dance, giving everyone the chance to escape. They reach a river that is filled with flesh-eating fishes. They release Vadianoi into the river and ask him to send the fish away so that they can cross the river easily, but he gets scared of them and disappears. Meanwhile, Vasilisa and Koshchei get into an argument, and she leaves. Koshchei tells Ivan that the king had fallen in love with Vasilisa, but the queen had become jealous of her and had turned her whole family into frogs. Ivan goes to find Vasilisa and tries to cheer her up. He gives her a rabbit, but she immediately throws it away. Suddenly, the rabbit turns into Varvara and all of them get surrounded by her men. To get away from them, they jump into a well and block the opening. They find that Vadianoi has reached there as well. The merman tells them to go ahead without him and that he will keep the queen and her men away for as long as he can. He drinks all the water in the well, which causes him to swell up. In turn, he blocks the path that the group had taken to get out of the well. When Varvara enters the well, she turns Vadianoi into stone and follows Ivan and his group. It is revealed that Vasilia had fallen in love with Ivan and did not want him to leave Bellegory. The team lies down to rest, but when Ivan wakes up the next day, he finds that he is surrounded by Varvara and her men once again. Vasilia tries to fight them off, but she falls off a cliff. She manages to save herself, by turning herself back into a frog. Ivan is captured by the queen and is taken away when he distracts the guards and escapes. He reaches an area that is filled with swords. Soon, Varvara reaches there as well and begins attacking him. To defend himself, Ivan picks up a sword and finds that it is the one they have been looking for. He swings the sword and the power that emits from it, causes the queen to get knocked off. He then gives the sword to Koshchei, whom he trusts, but Koshchei betrays him. The king also shows up there and Koshchei exchanges the sword with a magical stone. However, he is betrayed by the king as well, who hands him a fake stone and uses the stone and sword to make himself immortal. Just when the king is about to attack Koshchei, Vasilia attacks him, which causes the sword to slip out of his hands. Ivan quickly picks up the sword and creates a portal, and jumps into it. He gets transported back into his world. Ivan finds that he regrets coming back to his world because he misses Vasilisa as the two of them had fallen in love. He uses the same slide to go back to Bellegory, where he is once again taken to the king by the castle guards. He finds that the king was about to complete the ritual that would make him immortal. Vasilisa tells Ivan to destroy the stone, which would kill the king. Just then, a dragon emerges from behind them and begins to attack the king. This gives Ivan the time to untie Vasilisa while the king is distracted. Then, the two of them begin fighting when Ivan finds that the king and the queen were responsible for turning his father into stone. The queen and Vasilisa begin fighting as well. Just then, Koshchei steals the stone from the king, but instead of using it to his advantage, he slashes it with his sword and destroys it, which kills him and the king. Seeing this, Varvara escapes from the castle to protect herself. Suddenly, everyone who had been turned to stone turned back to human and Ivan meets his father. He decides to stay in Bellegory, with his father and Vasilisa. Ivan returns to his world and gives the little boy in the hospital a potion that heals him. The movie ends with Ivan returning to Bellegory and marrying Vasilisa. That is it for today's recap. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button and check out the other videos from our channel.